Yes, the Michaela community.
Right, I think it was, I remember.
Yeah.
So she imposed this rule that they wouldn't be allowed to have prayer during lunchtime. And
Go on.
at first I thought, the Metro, the paper I was reading, not the best quality paper, journalism, but they were saying, I expected them to say, oh, this is not really good. We should allow the Muslim school students to pray, and it's an important part of multiculturalism. They made quite the opposite argument. They said, actually, no, it was good. She was creating an ethos which was multicultural, diverse. She wasn't trying to impose, she was imposing that rule, but she was doing it in the name of a kind of liberal ethos.
And it failed, and it's going to fail. It's going to fail in court. It's going to fail in court because the liberal society has a blind spot when it comes to Islamification. It doesn't recognize it as a threat, it doesn't see it as a threat, it just sees good citizens and bad citizens. And so it fails to draw up the dots that are right in front of it. It fails to put all the evidence together. So it's not just the Michaela Community School. It's also the fact that the Odeon Cinema, for instance, Cineworld or Odeon Cinema, had to pull the Woman from Heaven movie because of Islamist protests. It's the fact that you've got an MP who's now saying he's not going to stand for re-election because of Islamist intimidation. It's the fact that, you've got the Jewish community basically having to abandon London city centre because it's not safe to them because of all the hate marches connected to Palestine. You've got the fact that...
I think those are all hate marches.
You've got the fact that St James Sussex Gardens, which is just 10 minutes walk down that road, had all of its windows put through by a Muslim who in court said he did it because he hated Christians. You have the fact that the other schools, there's one in Birmingham, there's one in Batley and Spen where a teacher's been in hiding for 2 years. If the state can't protect its own teachers and the state can't protect its own politicians and the state won't even stand up to anti-Semitism and the state can't protect churches, why do you think that anyone should believe that liberal socialism can tackle Islamification?
Well, I think that rephrase the last question again. Just try and rephrase it for me so I can get my head around it. That last question. Because I've heard all the background. That's really...
So let me go a bit deeper. Liberalism, the reason why liberalism fails to deal with Islamification is because it assumes that everybody's in agreement with the idea of the secular, religious divide and the wall between the two.
This is where I have an issue. So liberalism stands against Islamification. It does.
It fails to do so. Liberal secularism.
So by definition, liberal values, things like democracy.
So why is it failing?
Well, I'd say overall the picture in Britain is one of secularization. People moving away from religion in general, including Islam. I think as we go down the generations, fewer and fewer children of...
What evidence have you got to support
Muslims
that?
Well, the data on secularization is quite clear. Like, if you're a religious person, you have about a 50% chance of that religion passing down to your children. That's probably a bit higher if you're Muslim. You have a higher chance, given the way Muslim communities are structured in Britain. But that doesn't mean necessarily in the long term they're going to fare any better than Christians or Hindus or any other. Religion in general is losing its appeal, whether it's Islam, Christianity, even like Orthodox Judaism. Britain is a very speedily, rapidly secularizing country. And then that's not really quite much to do with the state. The state's not even, I don't think, driving that per se. I mean, I went to a Catholic school, I have Catholic parents, and yet I turned out an atheiist. And the state didn't have much of a role to play in
you
that.
went to a Catholic school, so of course you became an atheist. The Catholic schools are the Catholic schools are the best way currently, because they're just dominated by liberal teachers and because Catholics are bad sociologists. The best way to create former Catholics is to send them to a Catholic school. Like the truth is that when you look at liberalisation, you're talking about increases in secularisation. That is happening, but it's happening amongst essentially Christian populations, or populations that would be identified as Christian, even if they never really go to church. The kind of person that says, I'm a Church of England person, even though they never darken the door of a church. And then in the next census, like 10 years down the line or 20 years down the line, now no longer registers themselves as a Church of England Christian, but registers.
It's not even like they're an atheist.
But the point is, as liberalisation increases, the liberals have less children and no children.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
The future does not belong to them.
I've heard
The demographics are that the Muslim population and Orthodox Jewish populations and certain tiny Christian groups are growing.
Well,
And one second. I'm trying to make a point.
Okay.
So my point to you is that you're saying that actually the process of secularization is good. It's happening. It's got momentum, and seems that is the future. But the reality is, when you look into the deeper details of what is actually happening in secularization, firstly, it's not really secularization, because it's not that people are abandoning different mythical beliefs. They're just changing them. Often they're becoming what we would call New Age spiritualists of some kind. They believe in something, but they're not quite
sure.
sure.
Abandoning organized religion.
They're abandoning organized religion.
Right.
Secondly, there are examples where, like Tower Hamlets, like Birmingham, like Bradford, where as secularization has progressed, Islamification has run in behind it, and what you're seeing is an Islamification of society after the secularization has run its course. So the deeper details actually show that you're placing a faith in the wrong thing. It's not working. It's just leading to Islamification. And the question that we're debating is,
the solution is more Christianity.
What, sorry?
I think the solution is to combat both on their own. On the same terms. Christianity and Islam, both of them, as I see them, irrational belief systems. Both of them need to be fought back against. And now, if you're saying, I don't know if this is true. I'd have to research that. It's an interesting project to research. If you're saying, these towns, people stop going to church, they might go into New Age religion, but then the mainstream religious expression is through like Islam. And you're saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying it's a bad thing, but no more than having Christians. Right. For someone who's an atheist, sort of liberal-minded person like me, I'm actually radically left-wing, so I'm very even, you gotta remember, there are radical left-wingers who have religious beliefs, and it's not necessarily a contradiction. All I'm saying is it's something to be fought against both ways.
Yeah, but the point is...
Yeah, we have to fight. As a secularist, I think we should challenge every form of religion as an irrational social...
Even the terms of your argument aren't a successful one. Because you're arguing that, we just need to tackle Islam as being an irrational form of belief. Now, that ignores the irrationalities of atheism, which is where you're couching your belief system in. And there are irrationalities within atheism. And because of those irrational contradictions within atheism, intellectually, you're not going to win the argument. You're not going to win the argument against people of religious belief, because in terms of the argument, it's a completely uninspiring alternative to offer secularism. And also, the battle is not just fought in polemical and apologetical argument. It's fought economically. It's fought politically. The problem with liberalism is that it allows for Islamification in the first place. It allows for Sharia courts. It allows for Islamic financial structures.
I don't think a true liberal would support Sharia courts. I don't want to commit the no true Scotsman fallacy, but
that is the no true Scotsman.
I don't want to, but I would say if you're going to uphold beliefs of liberalism, it's more calling for consistency.
1 second.
I wouldn't, if I was a liberal, I wouldn't support Sharia courts, and I don't think anybody real liberal worth their salt would.
Right, but
unless they're doing it for tactical reasons or some sort of desire to undermine the West and your conspiracy theory. I don't know.
You've said that I've got a conspiracy theory. I've got no conspiracy theory. The little pops like that don't help you win the argument. The point is, look at liberal secular countries that exist today. France, England, the United States of America, Germany. These countries allow Sharia courts. They allow the practice of Sharia courts. They allow the practice of halal meat. I know you're a vegan.
If they do, then they shouldn't.
Right. Now, so in terms of opposing it...
I say liberals don't have enough teeth. They don't have the teeth and the balls to actually oppose not only Islam, but also radical Christianity.
Thank you very much.
Any form of radical religion. They don't.
Why don't liberals have enough teeth?
You've got to remember...
What is it about? 1 second.
So liberal elites are more than willing to use radical Islam to further their agenda, if it suits their agenda.
Thank you.
I'll give you the example of the Middle East. The British elite, throughout the last 100 years, say since the Second World War, have been more than willing to use radical Islamist forces to further their aims. in the creation of the state of Pakistan, for example, they're willing to work with the Muslim League. It wasn't because of any ideological affinity between the British elite and those kind of boots on the ground in Pakistan. Or say working with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and creating Saudi Arabia. It's an instrumental policy, and they're liberal people. They call themselves liberals, the ones who do, or they might call themselves conservatives. They might stand as part of a freedom-loving international order, but they're more than willing to work with radical Islam
So let me try to
in the Middle East.
Let me try to give you an analysis of.
But at home, it's more about well, we need a multicultural working class because we need the working class to work together. It's more a case of well. Religion is something you do in your private.
No.
We don't want to instill it on anybody. All we want is an efficient capitalist machine. We don't really care what religion you have.
Can I reply?
Just get along and don't fight each other. That's what they want.
So let me explain why the liberals do that. The reason why the liberals work in terms of working even with their enemies is because ideologically they only see, they measure everything on a cost-benefit basis. Everything is measured based on costs and benefits towards this world's aims. So a long-term enemy can be a short-term ally, and they have no ambition to reverse Islamification because they see that they have no right to reverse Islamification. I haven't finished. And so at the very heart of liberalism are the very ideas that guarantee liberalism fails to deal with Islamification. Christians, on the contrary, historically have reversed Islamification. We've reversed Islamification in Ethiopia, we've reversed it in Eastern Europe, we've reversed it in Spain, we reversed it in Portugal, we reversed it in the Caucasus, we reversed it in the Philippines. So the reason why Christians are able to reverse it is because ideologically our faith permits us to do those actions that lead to the reversal of Islamification. The liberal empires, on the contrary, had no ability, no desire to reverse Islamification. In fact, they encouraged it when it suited their policies, like they did in North Nigeria, like they did in North Sudan during the colonial period. Liberalism has no desire to enter into which religion people should follow because it thinks it's a non-question.
They've always believed in a kind of separation of church and state, right? That's a core tenet of like John Stuart Mill's beliefs.
Yeah.
You know, you have your religious tolerance. We have religious tolerance. We allow that. But if it impinges on the state policy, we shouldn't allow that.
But they don't.
And I don't think. Well, if they don't in practice, we got to remember. You got to separate how liberals are in practice with their beliefs.
Yeah.
So
and what I'm attacking is
the question. The question is they're not living up to their. I think they're not living up to their beliefs enough.
Yeah.
And your problem is you think that is their beliefs. Is that
is their beliefs?
I don't think so.
So I'll give you an example from here in the UK.
I mean, in France, for example, the repression of the burqa or the hijab. In Britain, we have the school teacher saying, "Oh, you can't pray at lunchtime if you're a Muslim." I think there are efforts by serious liberals to try and control the expression of religion in public.
So
for better or for worse. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad.
So let me explain why that's failing. It's failing in France. It's failing in France because the liberal values are anti-family. You talked about, well, I'm going to finish a sentence. Let me finish. So it's failing in France because demographically the French people are collapsing. And the French people are collapsing is because liberal values emphasize the idea of personal self-fulfillment. And because they emphasize the idea of personal self-fulfillment, it ends up creating a society that does not have children. And you mentioned the idea, that we need a multicultural workforce because the capitalist machine just wants an efficient capitalist machine. That's true, but the reason why Western societies are having to import millions of people is because Western societies have aborted millions of people. And so if you kill your own population, but your economy needs people, your economy needs people because your economy needs people, you have to import people to stand up to GDP. You're complaining, but you were interrupting me. No, you have been.
I don't want to monologue.
No, hold on one second. People can jump for themselves.
Is it a conversation?
It is a conversation, but you make points. I've got to respond to those points.
I've hardly made any points.
You have made points. And the thing is, if you interrupt me, then I have to speak longer and louder. Yeah?
Can I just say
Yeah,
something? Because I've heard you.
but will you
now.
stop interrupting me when I talk?
I'm going to interrupt you if you monologue.
Okay, if you... All right, then in that case, I'll interrupt you when I want.
I actually don't mind.
And this whole conversation just breaks down.
I don't mind if a bit of interrupting.
It'll break
due.
down.
I don't mind.
Conversation will break down.
A bit of. I mean, this is a friendly chat more than a formal, Oxford Student Union debate. So I don't mind a bit of interrupting. I just say that people. I don't support abortion. I'm against abortion. You might be surprised to know that. And I also am not a fan of mass immigration either. I think I've spoken about it today at Speaker's Corner. As someone on the radical left, that might seem strange to hear, like someone saying that. But I don't think abortion is a good way to solve our demographic problem, and I think it's unethical. That's the main issue, is that these... I come at it from a kind of liberal human rights perspective. Those unborn fetuses have human rights. If you believe in human rights,
Absolutely.
you can't really take away human rights from an unborn baby.
Totally agree.
So I think...
Well done.
I didn't come at it from a religious perspective. Although I heard my sister, who's a Catholic anti-abortion activist, she gave me the arguments from all kinds of angles, and I heard them, and I made up my mind, and so I'm against that.
Yeah.
And also, if you support, sort of as a little side tangent quickly, if you support disabled rights, you're seeing disabled children being aborted
Exactly.
endlessly. So if you're a liberal who believes in
Abortion.
disability rights and you support,
Yeah.
you should also be wary about abortion.
Even for little things like cleft lips.
Yeah, I mean, it's
children
remarkable.
for
I
cleft
think
lips. Something that's
remarkable.
completely,
It's remarkable.
completely treatable.
You know, throughout most of liberalism's history, most liberals would have been against abortion. I think it's only relatively recent. You know,
So,
liberalism is very
so-
protein.
so we agree.
We got to, you know, most liberals, when the foundational ideology
Yeah.
were Christian. Adam Smith,
Yeah.
great liberal economist, was a.
I'm
As
not
far as I
sure
know,
he
he's a
was Christian.
deist. He was a
Yeah,
deist.
so not a Christian.
Well, I mean, he wasn't atheist, or he wasn't like a secular-minded person. He was a religious-minded person.
Okay.
So I just wanted to. Okay, the point I'll land on, because I don't want to monologue either. I'm happy for you to interrupt if you want to cut it short. But I'll just quickly say that liberalism generally has been a force for good, and I think it's a force for secularization. If you think religion is irrational, which it is, I think plain to see, then we should secularize either through state intervention where it's necessary, like Sharia law. We shouldn't allow that at all. In the UK, at least, I don't think it should be allowed. And at the personal level, through your own personal private life, just question your beliefs. If you're a Christian, you listen to this gentleman's channel. It's a great channel, great perspectives. He's willing to debate anybody, which I really respect. But just question your Christianity, where you come from. Is it kind of a form of therapy that kind of helps you feel better about the fact that you're going to die and explode into a million atoms and there's nothing left after that? Just scientific fact? Or is it kind of a crutch?
Can I reply?
Come at it from the right place.
Can I reply? So the point is, the reason why liberalism fails to galvanize people in the right direction is because it starts from the wrong philosophical assertions. Firstly, it's completely irrational to hold up the idea of individual human rights. That's an irrational metaphysical belief. It is not grounded in an objective empirical reality. It's a philosophical statement. And it's a philosophical statement that emerged within a cultural context. And it's an irrational belief within secular humanism, and secular humanists have that irrational belief. But it's that very individualism and its emphasis on the contract of the individual to the state and human rights that is allowing Islamification and failing to prevent it. Because everything is measured on a cost-benefit, a cost-price-benefit, and so the cost, the benefit of being able to abort your children has a cost, which means you have to import mass levels of population. The reason why liberal secular humanists are in favor of abortion is because of their belief in the individual's autonomy, the individual's autonomous right over themselves, the idea of individual freedom.
You reject that idea?
Yes, I reject that idea. And so the other off lay of individualism is that individuals aren't committed to the same goals. Like in terms of secular ideologies, you get groups that are committed to economic goals, like liberal socialists, but they're not committed to cultural goals or social goals or political goals in a united way. So liberal socialists have different ways that they imagine creating a socialist economy.
This is where democracy should come in, right?
Even democracy is something that, so the point is, it's the very individualism that prevents enough liberal socialists like you from organizing against Islamification.
So for me, Islamification, such as it is, of certain towns, cities. You know, as problems go in the UK, the reason as a socialist, as someone with like liberal cultural values, I'm okay with gay marriage, for example. I wouldn't campaign about it because Islam is not, it seems more like a scapegoat than anything else, right? So we have all these economic problems, mass inequality, concentration of wealth in the hands of a few people. We have like, you know, rampant environmentalist catastrophe unfolding right across the world. Issues like climate change, climate catastrophe, poisoning of our lakes and rivers in the UK, not just through sewage, but through like dairy farming. And you know, all these destabilizing currents that the media should be bringing forth and actually getting us to address, and I say is the real issues. You know, Muslims are often a kind of scapegoat. Well, we have all these, you know, problems. Why not just blame immigrants, blame Muslims? Saying this as someone who opposes mass immigration, I don't think it's particularly a good solution to the problems you've what about? But at the same time, do you not think it's kind of you're playing into the oldest trick in the book? It's still classic divide and rule. If I was an elite, like a kind of top 0.1%, I'd be so happy to know that at Speaker's Corner, there's gentlemen who are not, instead of debating about the environment and the environmental collapse unfolding, instead of debating about the long-term demographic crisis, which is way beyond just abortion, by the way, it's just people don't even want to have kids to begin with. They won't even, you know, many people don't even have marriages, relationships. It's bigger than that. Instead, no, it's blame Muslims, Islamification, Muslim grooming gangs. It's these tropes. It's a very convenient scapegoat.
Okay. So
I'll let you reply and then I have to go, but I really enjoyed the discussion.
That's a shame.
Finish what you wanted to say.
So here's the thing.
Take as long as you
He
need.
says that I'm playing up to tropes about blaming the Muslims. Well, so speaks the man that doesn't know 1400 years of church history. Christians, let this fact settle into your minds if you are a liberal. Let my words echo in your ears. For 1,400 years, without missing a heartbeat, somewhere in the world there has been an Islamic army attacking a Christian community, crying out Allahu Akbar as they rape our women, steal our children, burn our churches. Only the height of liberal ignorance about 1400 years could try to say that wanting to tackle the continuity of 1,400 years of Islamic aggression is somehow playing into the tropes of the elites because they want to divide and rule. Let's be clear. Even if you stick your head in the sand, as lots of liberal secularists are now discovering, like the head teachers, like the MPs, like the Jewish community, the Islamists will find you anyway. And as the brother said, his ideology says that there are other issues more important. It's not an issue for him. It's not an issue for him that tens of thousands of Christians are being butchered in Nigeria.
No, sorry, that's just not true.
It's not an issue. It's not an issue that churches are bombed in Pakistan. It's not an issue. It's not an issue. It's not an issue. It's not an issue that Christians in the UK have had to go into hiding.
That's a bit unfair. I didn't say that.
The reality is, what we should worry about, what we should worry about. Now notice he's triggered. He's triggered. You literally said it was an issue. He literally said that's not an issue. He literally said that in those words. He said that Islam was not an issue, and then he listed all these other issues.
I didn't say Islamification.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to finish my point. Absolute
bollocks.
I am going to finish my point.
It's not an issue. 10,000.
The reality is, the liberals have their agenda.
I'm not a liberal, by the way.
Right?
I'm a socialist.
He's a liberal socialist.
I can't stand the centrist.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's a liberal socialist.
No, I'm not
and he's
liberal.
worried now because he's caught out by his own words.
I never said it wasn't an
You
issue.
literally, and hopefully JC will do the flashback where you literally say Islam is not the issue in those exact words.
No,
that's what he said.
Climate change, it
That
means
is
nothing,
there you go. Compared to climate
culture
change,
wars are
it
distraction.
means nothing.
These culture wars are
So compared to climate change, the deaths of 10,000 of Christians mean nothing.
Well, actually, no.
Compared to climate change, the bombing of churches in Pakistan mean nothing. compared to climate change, the fact that Nisar Hussain was driven from his home means
Millions of
nothing.
Bangladeshis have to leave.
And I am just going to continue talking until he lets me speak without interruption. Ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I'm just going to stand in front like this.
And they have
So
to
there we
come
go.
here. That's going to be
So
an issue.
ladies and gentlemen.
That's important.
Ladies and
That's
gentlemen.
important.
You heard it from the liberals' own lips.
I'm not liberal. Stop
They
saying
are
that.
unable and unwilling to face up to Islamification. Liberal secularism, liberal secularism is not defending British MPs. Liberal secularism is not defending British teachers. Liberal secularism is not defending British schools. Liberal secularism is not defending the Jewish community. Liberal secularism is not defending the Christian community. And the reason why it's not is because liberalism does not give people the inspiration to do so, the ideological resources to do so.
So become a
Socialism,
far more
socialism is just an economic policy. It is not a cultural identity.
You're out of your depth in this.
It's not a political ideology.
Very much out of
It's
your depth.
purely an economic ideology.
It's much more than that.
And it does not deal with, ladies
it's
and
a political
gentlemen,
philosophy.
the fundamental questions. And it is born of liberalism. It is a child of liberalism.
John Stuart Mill was a socialist.
So the reality is, when you say socialist, you do mean liberal.
John Stuart Mill became a socialist.
So, ladies and gentlemen, do you want to continue debating now?
Well, I think that was really, really, really heinous what you said. You said you were talking about Islamification in the context of Muslims immigrating to Britain, becoming a majority in certain neighborhoods, and I said that's
not just in that. I also talked about. You do like he let me finish. Like he let him finish.
I was happy to let.
Like he let me finish.
Let me finish
If
myself off.
no, now he wants an organised debate. When he was shouting through.
No. I was happy to. First of all, we agreed on interruptions, and I'm going to interrupt if you're going to lie about me. I'm sorry. I have
Did
to
I
interrupt.
lie?
You said I had no issue with tens of thousands of people getting killed.
Is not the issue.
No, he said I have no issue with
Who
tens
heard
of thousands
you
of people
say
getting killed.
that
When did I
compared
say
to
that?
Climate change, Islamification is nothing.
No, I did. Let me explain.
those are
Let
what
me
you said.
explain. Either you've misunderstood, or in that which case you're not listening carefully, or you're intentionally doing this to rile up your viewers. I don't understand what you're doing. I don't really care. All I care about is the record. And I didn't say
Yes, you
that
did.
tens of thousands of people getting killed in Pakistan is not an issue. I never said that.
That's what Islamification is, though.
If you want to define it that way, and if that's what Islamification is, then of course that's terrible, and I'm against it. It's not a small issue.
Great. So
But
the question
but
is
you were not
why-
framing
no.
Islamification that way.
So my question is,
at the
why-
beginning of
why
this
are-
debate,
why are
we
liberal
weren't talking about
secularists failing?
Pakistan.
One second.
At the beginning
Why
of the
are
debate, we were
liberal-
talking about Britain.
Why are liberal secularists
We were talking about Britain.
failing to tackle Islamification around the world?
Well, what I'm saying, though, overall, liberal secularism it's generally attacking all forms of religion, right? Generally, religion is on the way out in this country, whether you're Muslim, Jewish, Christian, whatever. Now, you mentioned how Christians and Jews are having more children, either because they're not aborting or whatever reason, they're having more children. That might have some demographic effects down the line. I mean, look at Israel, right? The Orthodox Jews are having plenty of kids, and the liberal secular Jews aren't. And I agree, that's affecting the political system, right? It's moving much more to the right in Israel now than it was previously. That might happen in Britain, but I doubt it. These trends are not going anywhere anytime soon. Secularization it's a force of the modern world, and it's not something you can just breed out of existence. Now, I didn't say the conflict between Islam and Christianity is not a big one. I spoke about the way liberals, many of them Christians, like Tony Blair, were happy to weaponize Islam in the Middle East.
Land on a point so I can reply.
The British elite have been happy to weaponize Islam in the Middle East throughout the last 100 years when it served their interests. The creation of Pakistan and Saudi Arabia were very much imperial projects designed to maintain Western hegemony in those regions.
It's a monologue.
I'm sorry, I barely spoke compared to how long you went on for. You got to be. This is
all
pots
the way
and kettles. This is
Exactly,
pots and
but the
kettles.
point is, when you do it, it's okay.
I just want to clean the record and say, if Islamification is 10,000 people getting killed, that is an issue.
Okay, thank you.
But if
We've established
Islamification
it
is
an
just
issue.
Muslims coming to
Allow me
Britain,
to reply.
that's not a problem.
Brother, allow me to reply. Allow me to reply.
I'm actually.
Allow me to reply. 1 second. Allow me to reply.
Because you're
going to run away.
I don't mind. No,
You're gonna run
I
away.
just don't like lying. You're outright lying.
No.
You're lying about me. You're just
Let's be
smearing
clear.
and lying for your.
Now that we've got the liberal to admit that Islamification is not a problem.
This is absolutely
Now that we have him admitting that Islamification is a problem, he doesn't know what liberalism is. He doesn't know what. Do you believe in the idea? Do you believe in the idea of individualism?
I'm a libertarian socialist.
Libertarian socialist. Do you believe in the idea of the? Do you believe in the idea of the individual?
I'm an anti-authoritarian socialist.
Do you believe? Do you believe in the idea of the individual?
Well, that individuals exist. Yeah, they do.
Right.
I mean, you're an individual.
Do you believe that citizens should all be equal?
Oh, we should have equal rights under the law.
Do
Absolutely.
you believe we should organise around the nation state?
I'm not a nationalist. I'm an
I didn't say that you were a
internationalist.
nationalist.
So I think the organising principle of humanity should be humanity
Okay.
itself, not
Okay.
all these national
Right.
divisions.
So
I'm not a nationalist.
so let's be
I
clear.
reject the state.
He's a liberal secularist. Let's be clear. Right, 1 second.
And I'm not a nationalist.
1 second.
I hate these concepts.
1 second. Ladies and
I
gentlemen.
like gay marriage, but that
Ladies
doesn't
and
make me a
gentlemen.
liberal.
Ladies and gentlemen.
I support gay
Now
marriage,
that
doesn't
we've
make me a liberal.
established that Islamification, yeah, I wouldn't have to shout if you'd let me speak.
Sorry.
Right. So now that we've established that actually Islamification is a problem, right? Through the examples that I gave, and he has admitted that Islamification has a problem.
Well, so
Perhaps, now
Christianization-
notice he's interrupting again.
Religion
Now
is terrible.
notice he's interrupting again, but he complains when I interrupt him. So now the question is, why are liberal secular societies failing to deal with Islamification? Why are they chucking their teachers under the bus? Why are they chucking their head teachers under the bus? Why are they abandoning their MPs? Why are they abandoning the Jewish community? Why are they not tackling the mass murder of tens of thousands of Christians in Nigeria? I'll tell you why. Because liberal secular values do not inspire people to fight against Islamification. The elites believe in individualism. They believe in self-fulfillment. They believe in the idea of individual autonomy. They believe in the idea of being able to pursue their own life agenda, and tackling Islamification involves sacrifice. It involves making sacrifices that will impact your life.
Christianity will do that.
And it involves recognizing that Islamists are an enemy, a group, an enemy to tackle.
So not all Muslims, just Islamists.
All Islamists.
So sort of radical, Salafi, fundamentalist Islam.
So let me be clear.
Not all Muslims.
So let me be clear.
Saying just the radical, Salafi,
Let me be
Wahhabis,
clear.
right?
Not all Muslims are Islamists.
All right.
However, here's
We agree on like
but
80%.
but the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, because of the secular humanist individualism, they cannot galvanize themselves to stand against Islamification, and they are not.
Is Douglas Murray a Christian?
No.
No, he is
Yeah,
not.
that's true.
Douglas Murray is an avid atheist.
Yeah.
Now you cannot
Isn't he gay?
claim
He's
that
homosexual.
Douglas Murray
He's gay as
does
well.
not fight against and speak very actively and very passionately.
I'm an atheist and I hate
do
religion.
a huge amount of work against the Islamist problem that you talk of.
And is the
he is-
secular liberal state supporting him, or is it ignoring him?
But this is more a problem.
Let me
of the liberals
just
not living up to their
remind.
values.
Let me just
liberals
remind.
are not living up to
Let
their
me
values.
just remind. Let me just remind the liberal secular, the vocal liberal secularists in the audience. Let me just remind the vocal liberal secularists in the audience. You're late to the battle. We've been fighting these people for 1400 years. The church.
Which church?
And you,
Catholic Church.
liberal Look
Catholic
notice they're all triggered.
The Catholic Church.
Notice that all the liberal secularists are triggered.
So why aren't you a
They
Catholic?
ask a question,
Why aren't you a Catholic? The Catholic
they ask a question and they don't want to hear the answer.
Catholics have done far more than Protestants.
Ladies
to
and
fight Islam.
gentlemen.
Why haven't you? Why aren't
Ladies
you a
and
Catholic?
gentlemen,
The Catholics have done
Ladies
far
and
more than
gentlemen.
Islam. Why aren't you a Catholic?
ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen,
Boys and girls.
You can be a socialist.
ladies and gentlemen,
I'm not.
ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen.
There are no ladies here.
Liberal socialists in the Labour Party allowed tens of thousands of girls to be raped by Muslim grooming gangs.
No, here we go again. I'm done with
That's
this
a fact. And it's a trope, apparently. I made it up. It's not real, ladies and
Study
gentlemen.
that says all these grooming gangs are like.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Show me the study that says that.
Ladies and gentlemen. The reality is, ladies and
Pedophiles are white
gentlemen.
men. I'm sorry, they are.
Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. The liberal secularists can't and won't fight Islamification because they confuse religion with race. And they think that tackling a religion is giving leeway to ethnic racism.
That's actually a valid point. I agree with that. No, he makes a valid point. Liberals, no, this is one reason I'm not a liberal, is because liberals, they don't want to deal with these thorny questions the way you're. I think
we need to define the term liberal.
You have the wrong solution, but you had at least dealing with the problem
Give your
more
definition
honestly.
of a liberal. Give your definition
Well,
of liberal.
liberalism is very protean, all right? It's changed dramatically over the last couple hundred years.
Agreed.
All right? So John Stuart Mill would be today like a radical right-winger today.
Yes.
But back in his day, he was challenging authority. John Stuart Mill, Wilhelm von Humboldt, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, these liberal-minded individuals were radical for their day. Their views on women were not, so they weren't feminists at all. But today, they'd be considered right-wing, but for that time, they were liberal. Nowadays, liberalism it depends what you want it to mean, right? It depends on how you want to pursue it. Liberalism today is a kind of capitalistic ideology. It supports the individual autonomy, the idea that the market system will solve everything. Right, the state can have some limited interventions to provide welfare, but overall, it's in your hands as an individual. Right?
Let me give a definition of liberalism.
It's about humanitarianism, human rights, and now broadly speaking, these things are much better than the absolute shithole theocracy you want to create. I'm sorry, the kind of authoritarian nightmare that you want to, the Christian super state you've spoken about.
Yeah.
It's an absolute heaven compared to that idea. I'm sorry to say.
Okay, so let me reply. Let me reply. So here's what.
The problem is liberals don't live up to
Now
their
notice
values.
he's interrupting again.
I just want to
Notice he's
quickly say one last
interrupting
thing,
again.
very quick.
Notice he's interrupting
liberals
again.
not living up to their
Like he
values.
complains that I interrupt him, but he
Go on, I'm
interrupts
sorry,
me
go on,
consistently.
go on.
Let's be clear. It's the liberals that gave us the genocide of abortion. It's the liberals that gave us the nuclear bomb and used it. It's the liberals that gave us. It's the liberals that gave us the concentration camp. It's the liberals that gave us the idea, ladies and gentlemen, the idea that you should be cancelled if you speak the wrong thoughts.
Being cancelled and having a
Now notice he's interrupting again. Notice he's interrupting again.
You're hilarious.
Now I'm going to interrupt him the next time he talks, but he'll complain when I do.
Hilarious.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's be clear. Liberalism is the idea that you organize your worldview around the concept of this myth, this irrational metaphysical belief, the concept of humanity. They borrow that idea from the scaffold of Christianity that actually believes in the idea of humanity. Liberalism organizes that humanity around the individual's contract with the nation state.
Are we attacking liberals?
And organizes judgments by the state based upon an ideology of reason, of rationalism that leads to a cost price analysis to every decision the state makes. The state made a choice because of individual freedom to allow abortion. That led to gaps in the labour market that it needed to fill through mass migration, that it then needed to incorporate through an ideology called multiculturalism, which then led to Islamification. And that's where we've got to today,
I just wanted to find,
ladies and gentlemen.
Are we comparing, like, let's talk about something here for a second. The difference between
We're trying to, but you keep interrupting whenever I talk.
You can interrupt if you want. Ideas and the people who believe in them. There's a difference. I know it sounds like a truism.
And I'm attacking the ideas,
No, but you
ladies and
seem
gentlemen.
to be more attacking the people.
No, I've attacked the ideas because I've
That's
laid
valid.
out the ideas.
No, that's valid to attack.
And that is valid to attack
But
the
there's a
ideas.
difference.
Thank you very much.
Shall
we stop interrupting one another now?
The people who dropped the atomic bomb were mostly, as far as I know, Harry Truman was a Christian. He wasn't a dyed-in-the-wool liberal. He wouldn't have had a place today in today's world.
He believed in a secular liberal state.
George Bush, who launched the
not
war in
a
Iraq.
Christian state.
George Bush, who launched the war in Iraq, which has claimed the lives of more than 1 million people, according to the Lancet, leading medical journal.
Total war
George Bush was a
is
radical
the
Christian.
doctrine created
Sorry, can I
by
just-
liberal society.
Christians.
Wait, do you want
in
to stop
control.
interrupting? Will you stop interrupting
Interrupt me
me?
later. Interrupt me later.
No.
Interrupt me
Do
later.
you want to interrupt me later? Do you want to stop
Interrupt me later.
interrupting? If you stop interrupting me, I'll stop interrupting you. How about we do that? How about we do that?
We have let's try our best. Let's try
Okay,
our best.
I will not interrupt you now.
All right.
Because now you realise how annoying it is to be
think
interrupted.
The only time I really had to interrupt.
Go
The
on.
rest of the time I've been a bit like.
No, you haven't.
naughty.
You've been interrupted
The time I had to
constantly.
interrupt was when you said I think that it's no issue that 10,000
Right.
Pakistanis
Gonna let
getting
you
killed is
speak.
nothing.
Go on.
That I had to. When you're outright lying and making up stuff, I have to
lie.
say something. I have to
Wasn't
say
a lie.
something. No, liberalism. You know, there was a famous, well, not that famous, but someone who's influenced me a lot. He's a great scientist named Jacques Fresco, and he said Christianity is a good idea, right? It's a shame people don't practice it. And I would say that's the idea about liberalism too, right? It wasn't a very liberal thing to drop the nuclear bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. There wasn't much of a belief in humanitarian intervention there when they did that. They didn't have to. They could have waited for Russia to enter the war, and that would have caused Japan to surrender, but they didn't. All right? So liberalism, I don't think it's particularly liberal to believe in abortion either. Abortion, you know, you're violating a human right to life by doing that. There's no judge, jury either. I'm not coming at it from a Christian perspective. It's liberal. It's a liberal human rights argument against abortion. All right? Liberalism is just as multicultural as Christianity. Christianity, Islam, and liberalism all have a multicultural bent to them. They're about crossing boundaries of ethnicity. Muslims don't care what color you are as long as you follow Islam. They don't care if you're brown or black or whatever. Liberals don't care. Liberalism can appeal to someone no matter what their ethnic background is. Same with Christianity. These are universalistic ideologies.
Can I reply?
So I don't think you should be conflating liberals who are failing to live up to their values with your sort of idealized form of Christian hegemony. It doesn't make sense.
Let me reply to that.
It's not fair.
Can I reply now?
It's a really unfair way to frame the
Can I
debate.
reply?
Go ahead.
So, ladies and gentlemen, he keeps saying that we should be attacking ideas, and that's exactly what I am attacking. And so far, he hasn't engaged with the critique that I've made. So I'll state it again. Liberalism starts with the idea of individualism and the idea of the individual's contract with the state, irrelevant to religion. And it believes and assumes that everybody agrees with the idea that your religion should be kept private and not influence your politics. But that idea, ladies and gentlemen, is impractical because your values will always affect your politics. And because of that objective reality, like an apple falling because of gravity, because of that objective reality, Islamification will follow large Muslim populations. And because liberals believe in the idea of individualism, they create the space for Islamification. And they don't have any ideological resources to push back.
Why we need socialism?
Ladies and gentlemen,
Douglas Murray.
Douglas Murray has been abandoned by the liberal elites. They don't care about
He's
him.
not a liberal, I don't think.
Furthermore, now you're interrupting
I'm
again.
talking to him,
No,
sorry.
you're interrupting. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm saying to you, because the debate we're having today is which can deal with Islamification better, liberal secularism or Christianity.
Douglas Murray.
Christianity has 1400 years tried and tested experience of reversing Islamification. We did so in Spain, we did so in Portugal, we did so in Sicily, we did so in Cyprus, we did so in Eastern Europe, we did so in the Caucasus, we did so in Ethiopia, we did so in Georgia, we did so in Armenia.
Look what these
And no, ladies and gentlemen, it was not about slaughter. No, ladies and gentlemen.
How is it?
There are thousands, tens of thousands of Muslims became Christians when the Christians controlled the politics, the economy, and the culture.
Absolutely, if they're over
So
free will.
these are the same Christians who hounded Jews across Europe as well.
Oh, we're
Are you
talking
saying,
about-
So Jews are they're the ones we should be not persecuting, but
Shall I
Muslims we should.
Shall I answer that question?
I mean, like what?
Shall I answer that question?
These are the same radical Christians who...
Now notice again how he's framing the conversation. He's framing the conversation. He's framing the conversation now about the people, not about the beliefs. He's pointing out now, oh, what did those bad Christians in the past? But when I pointed out the bad liberals of the past, it's attack the ideas, not the people. So let me explain how Christianity leads to de-Islamification. Let me explain how it does that. It does that because it believes in the church, and it believes that the church is the organizing structure of a society. And that as the church, the body of Christ, the people of God, that we should influence the economy, the politics and the laws in such a way as they point people towards God. Which means that as a Christian, I can say things like, I don't think we should have halal meat in the UK. I don't think, and he says, oh, come on. I don't think we should have the Adhan being blasted into people's rooms through megaphones.
Okay, that I agree with.
He agrees with that one. He agrees with that one. I don't believe that we should have any Sharia courts.
That I agree with as well.
Yeah?
Any liberal would agree with you on that.
Right. But here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Anybody would say that.
Show me from liberalism. I'm saying this because I believe that law should point towards God. Show me from liberalism how you get to the idea of stopping the Adhan being blasted into people's homes, closing down Sharia courts.
So look, I mean, look, from my reading of John Stuart Mill, I'm not saying he's the ultimate liberal, but he kind of is. You would say that you've got to divide between, if something's hurting someone else, and it's hurting the wider society, then it should be legislated against. If you can prove why blasting noise in someone's house that they didn't ask for, it's affecting their mental health, then that's obviously something that should be legislated against. It takes human happiness to be a kind of measure of things, right? And that might be seen as utilitarian, but until you can provide me an argument for why you should be a Christian at all, and religious at all, a kind of happiness model that pursues happiness for individuals seems to be a good model. And I'm not an individualist. I think socially we have to recognize we're social organisms, right? We rely on each other day in and day out, right? We can't just be isolated Robinson Crusoes. We do rely on each other.
Can I reply to that?
Can you reply to that? And also, can you tell me why you're not a Catholic? Because you seem to be singing the praises of Christendom in a sort of Catholic context. They were the ones who fought off the Islamic conquests in Spain and in Portugal, and they did the reconquest. They repelled Islamic invasions in the eastern part of Christendom as well, when the Turks came. I mean, why are you not a Catholic? You're kind of your own sort of Protestant.
So can I reply?
Why?
So, ladies and gentlemen, we've got 2 points now that we're finally getting into the debate. So he says about utilitarianism. He says that we should follow a utilitarian ethic as practiced socially and communally. But the point is that argument about utilitarianism could just be reversed. Because he's saying that white middle class people shouldn't have to hear the Adhan. So in other words, he wants to take away the happiness of the Muslim community that does want to hear the Adhan. Do you see how liberal arguments work against liberalism?
Does anybody here actually agree with that?
Liberal arguments actually work against liberalism. Because how can he justify saying that white middle class people shouldn't have to hear the Adhan, but so that Muslims can't hear it? This is the problem with liberalism, is that its logic is self-defeating at every turn. Christians would forbid the projection of the Adhan because we don't agree with the idea that a false message should be broadcast into people's homes. Because we believe that there is something called falsehood, something called untruth, a lie of the devil. And society has a reason to protect people from such ideologies and harm. But he hasn't given me a good reason to justify banning the Adhan by projection, even though he agrees with it. The logic that he marshalled could be flipped around to justify the Adhan being heard, because thousands of Muslims want to hear the Adhan for their own happiness as a community, as a body of people. So that deals with that point. The second point was, why do I keep talking about the church as a body of people rather than talking about it as an institution? Because only the Catholics fought against the Muslims. Once again, he doesn't know anything about history. Because, ladies and gentlemen,
This is just getting roasted.
the American state fought against the Barbary pirates at a time when the majority of the American people understood the American state as a Christian country. And they understood their struggle against the Barbary pirates as being a religious duty. The British fought against the Islamic slave trade and suppressed it because they saw it as a religious duty. They're both Protestant nations when they did it. Russian Orthodox Christians fought against the Ottoman Empire because they saw it as a religious duty to free Christians in Eastern Europe. So this idea that only Catholics have fought against Islamification is a falsehood based upon the ignorance of history. Ethiopian Orthodox Christians fought against Islamification, and they're not Roman Catholic or European Orthodox or Protestant. It is simply untrue to say that only Catholics fought against Islamification. But it is simply true to recognize that every state that has tried to practice secularism against Islamification has failed to win the fight. I'll give you examples. Secularization in Turkey has been overturned by Erdogan. Secularization in Lebanon has been overturned by the Hezbollah. Secularization in France is failing against the Islamification of France. Secularization in the UK is failing against Islamification in London. Secularization in the USA is failing to stop Islamification of Dearborn, Michigan. We have secularization in Nigeria has failed to stop 12 states imposing Sharia law, and it had a secular constitution. The evidence is clear. In the social game of trumps, Islamification beats secularization. Well, I've got an ace that we can all play. It is the idea of a muscular church, because a muscular church has reversed Islamification before and can do so again. So I'll ask you, and your reply, try again. Use liberalism to justify stopping the Adhan from being broadcast from the mosques in a way that can't be reversed.
Let me tell you something about myself quickly, and I have to go, but I really enjoyed this. I'm not a liberal, all right? I'm a communalist. If you Google Murray Bookchin, you'll get an idea of who that philosopher was, what that ideology is. It does draw on liberal ideas, human rights, humanitarian law and all the rest. But it's more than that, right? So if some communities agree on it in a local democratic context, I believe in direct democracy, if they decide they want to hear the Adhan, they want to hear the call to prayer in the morning, then I think they should have the right to do that. If some local communities, through direct democratic assembly, decide, no, we don't want to hear that, I think a confederation should allow for some variety. Some towns should have we should have a kind of a tapestry, a kind of cultural tapestry that allows for a variety of different forms of behavior. And that stands against the liberal capitalist homogenization tendency, and it stands against basically irrational forces, i.e. religion. Religion's fundamentally irrational, right? It's based on supernatural thinking, magical thinking. It requires a great deal of suspension of disbelief, suspension of skepticism in order to function. It doesn't work. From a perspective of reason, basic logic, it doesn't work. It's not a tenable way to think about the world. A scientific approach makes more sense. You can use political philosophy to explore the trickier questions like human rights. Human rights are grounded in human needs, objective human needs: food, water, shelter. We do have an innate desire for a level of autonomy. People who are imprisoned, they might have the best food, shelter, clothing, but they won't live as long as people who are not imprisoned. Humans they thrive at the level of individual autonomy, not unlimited.
Can I reply?
So liberalism, I agree, has failed. It has failed in many senses. But I never made the case. I never made the case that I was a liberal. I never made the case that I was a liberal. I've always said from the beginning of this discussion, I'm a socialist, a libertarian socialist. The ideas of liberalism have been wrecked on the shoals of capitalism. They haven't gone far as they should have. But I believe in human rights. Religion is irrational. You can't use it as the basis for running a society. I'm almost finished. I don't want to hear a reply because I've heard already 12, 13 we've had a good discussion, I think. The interruptions. I started interrupting when I was lied about.
Okay.
When I was said to say that Islamification is not an issue. Tens of thousands of Christians in Pakistan being killed is not. It is a problem. Britain has supported radical Islam, and the most liberal British elites have supported radical Islam to undermine secular Arab nationalism in the Middle East.
Can I reply?
When secular Arab nationalists wanted to create something modern, developed, based on secular values, they've been undermined at every turn by Western elites, propping up Saudi dictators, propping up radical Muslim organizations. That should be opposed. Whether you're a liberal or Christian or whatever, that should be opposed. And that's the basic message I'd like to give to you. I'm not a religious person because religion is, in my view, irrational. But I'm not a liberal either.
Okay, let me reply.
Liberalism has failed, but secularism has a chance, and we should pursue secularism as much as we can.
So, ladies and gentlemen,
thank you very much thanks for having me. I really enjoyed the debate.
Remember what he said.
Thank you so much, guys.
You have him on camera saying that he agreed with me to silence the Adhan. He said that. He said he agreed with me. And then when I pressed him as a liberal how he could justify that, the moment he started tapping into his liberal ideology, he admitted that we had to allow the Adhan, that we should allow the Adhan. In other words, he proved the point that I made. Liberalism cannot stand up to Islamification. It's throwing its MPs under the bus. It's throwing its teachers under the bus. It's throwing its schools under the bus. It's even throwing its own values under the bus because the white liberal elites are so self-fulfilled, so self-gratifying, so self-absorbed that they do not and cannot bring themselves to make any sacrifice that is necessary to deal with the Islamist. But Christianity can equip you to deal with the Islamists. Why? Because it gives you a goal greater than your own life. It gives you a vision worth sacrificing your life for. And so you are willing to make the sacrifices necessary to do battle in whatever way that battle needs to be done to deal with the Islamist ideology that is winning in Turkey, winning in Lebanon, winning in Nigeria, winning in France, winning in the UK, winning in the USA. Wake up! Liberal secularism is not going to protect us. We need to abandon the liberal ideology and embrace the kind of Christianity that has defeated Islamification before. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? So Christianity, ladies and gentlemen, is when... Sorry? Okay, I'm going to answer that question. So what do I mean by muscular Christianity? It's a weird phrase. And I kind of made it up because I didn't know how to sort of separate what I was saying from what people see on the BBC. What you see when you watch the BBC is a civic religion, a church of rituals and civic ceremonies marking special days in the calendar. Muscular Christianity is when Christianity is a complete way of being human, a complete way of life. It impacts your economic choices. It impacts your political choices. It impacts your cultural choices. It impacts your social choices. It affects your life in all of these spheres, and it seeks to transform society to accord with what we believe as Christians. That's not the Christianity taught from the BBC. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen?
I'm not sure about how you answered that. I still don't quite understand. How can it be
What?
How are you going to, how can you stand up to
Okay,
that?
so this is how you do it.
What? Well, particular...
Yeah, you do it through the choices you make politically, economically, and socially. Let me give you some examples. Would you give charity if you're put your hand up if you're a Christian? Right? Okay, those of you that put your hand up as Christians, would you give to a charity that allows Mormons to do missionary work? You wouldn't, would you? Right. So why would you give your money to a zakat paying halal restaurant when zakat pays for Islamification? So you make an economic choice not to go to a halal restaurant. Why would you vote for an MP that's in favor of abortion? You shouldn't. And so Christianity affects your political choices. You see how it begins to work. You start shopping at Christian businesses. You send your children to Christian schools. You vote for Christian MPs. And slowly and surely you begin to express Christianity as something more than simple civil ceremonies. That's what I mean by a muscular Christianity, allowing our discipleship to affect every area of our life. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, any other questions?
Talking about money, financial, you're talking about money, where the money goes.
Yes, that's part of the issue.
And what politicians say that they're Christians.
So as Christians, what we need to do is to establish a Christian economy. Because the reason why the liberal progressives have such a grip over our economy, ladies and gentlemen, over our culture, is because they have such a grip over our economy. Only when we create an alternative economy can we create an alternative culture and an alternative politics. You've got to deal with the money question first. You've got to defund the liberal progressives by boycotting their businesses, which means that Christians have to create their own businesses to replace the liberal progressives in every field. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Sorry? Right, so it's a good question. There isn't a demand for that. That is a good point. It's a good point. The demand for a Christian economy is very little. So we've got to first create the Christian communities. And we do that by forming Benedict-style communities where Christians gather together geographically. They gather together geographically so that they are the majority in a certain area, and that then creates the demand for working and buying and selling from and to Christian businesses. So the first thing is you've got to create the communities. The other way to do it is to create Christian businesses that are so excellent in what they do that everybody goes there because that's the best business to do it in. I've just said, no, you've got to create the demand by creating the communities. I've just said that. I've answered that question, sir. So the question is there a demand to create the Benedictine-style communities? Well, no, not now, because a lot of the church has not been educated in terms of sociology and politics. The church is using a model that isn't working. It's the parish system model, the idea of the local church that just serves the local community when most of the local community aren't Christian. That sociological model of church is not working, it is failing. And that's why churches are dying and churches are closing. We need to recognize that times have changed, and we need to create an alternative sociological structure that is suitable for the conditions that Christians find themselves in today, now. And that is the Benedict community. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Sorry? Go on, bro. There was a period when Christians had Benedict communities. And I just want to point out something. If you read the book of Acts, all of those churches were Benedict communities. Every single one of them. Because they all lived in small towns with small populations that you could traverse on foot. And they met in one another's homes. And they lived as a Benedict community in every single city that Paul wrote to, that the book of Acts referred to the church existing in. So the Benedict community is the original model of church, ladies and gentlemen. As for the UK, the Christian community, when it was doing missionary work amongst the Celtic pagans and the Saxon pagans, used the Benedict model as its missionary model. And it worked. Well, if it worked in the past, it can work for us again. And it doesn't just work for us, it works for anyone that uses it, which is why Islam is growing successfully, because they're using the Benedict option. Which part? I explained a lot. In the 1st century and in the 4th century. Those two periods. Those two periods. Yeah.
How are you going to change things to how you think they should be?
The only way that I can is to convince people through evidence and argument. Any other questions? Okay, in that case, guys, I'm going to stop. Going to go for a coffee. If anyone wants to come with me for a coffee, you're more than welcome to join me.
Well, I mean, we'll be listening to you while you're having coffee. We'll be listening to you if you come back.
I'm not going to come back today. So if you want to come with me, I'm going to go and grab a coffee. God bless you.